Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Jedd Fisch, the Washington Huskies, continue the momentum in the transfer portal, and we told you guys we keep you as updated as possible with what Washington is doing in the portal. They land a very intriguing commitment coming from former Ohio State offensive lineman Enokk Vimahi, a guy that is not necessarily going to make national media news in terms of committing to Washington, but the Washington Husky fans are sitting there saying, this is exactly what we needed heading into 2024. A guy that's going into his sixth year of college football, appeared in 38 games for the Ohio State Buckeyes during his career. You look at this Washington team, we've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. This team can be extremely dangerous in 2024, but they got to make sure that offensive line is up to par, especially heading into the Big Ten. You're bringing a guy that's going into his sixth year, having played as much as Enokk Vimahi has. I mean, that's absolutely massive. And I think my favorite thing about Enokk Vimahi, this is a guy that's played all four positions on the offensive line outside that center spot, made appearances at both the guard spots, both the tackle spots. He brings experience, he brings versatility, and no question makes this offensive line better heading into 2024, whether he's a starter, whether he's a depth piece for this Washington Huskies program. Want to get into Enokk Vimahi, but also want to talk about some other offensive linemen the Huskies have made moves on in the portal. Before we get into it, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and the Washington Husky fans. It's been a blast breaking down these commitments. We did Jordan Washington last night. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Enokk Vimahi. And although not a consistent starter for the Ohio State Buckeyes, a guy that did appear in 38 games. And when you read some of the spring practice notes, a guy that was mentioned as kind of in that trust circle in terms of Ohio State offensive lineman going into his sixth year. It didn't look like he'd start for Ohio State. He comes to Washington bringing a ton of experience and obviously that versatility part. And you look at why that versatility is so important. Washington's going into 2024 with a lot of names that they either had that were youngsters on this team from Kalen DeBoer or that they've added in the portal. And I think Jedd Fisch's goal is, hey, we got to get the best starting five out on the field. And how do you do that? It makes it a lot easier when you have a guy like Enokk Vimahi who can slide in pretty much all over that offensive line, a guy that's a quality athlete. He has the prerequisite frame to play tackle and guard. I mean, this one makes a ton of sense for the Washington Huskies. And we said it all the time. We saw it during the spring game. Will Rogers, Jonah Coleman in the backfield, guys like Denzel Boston, Jeremiah Hunter, Jedd Fisch running the – you look at this Huskies offense and say the offensive skill is certainly in place. I think the big question a lot of us have is, hey, are we going to be able to compete in the lines of scrimmage? Getting a guy that's played at the Big Ten level, that's been in a program like Ohio State for the last 5 years, that's absolutely massive. If you're a Washington Husky fan and you take a look at what they've done in the portal, really big fan of what Jedd Fisch is doing, kind of taking a combination of guys on the offensive line. You scroll down, Chris Adams coming from Old Dominion, started at both left tackle and right tackle, all 13 games for Old Dominion in the 2023 season, only gave up 22 pressures. You look at a guy in D'Angelo Titali. This is a guy that at Portland State played phenomenal football. And yes, he's jumping up from Portland State to the Big Ten level. You take a look at some of the numbers, played over 1,100 snaps during his career. In 2023, out of 256 pass pro sets, he gave up 1 sack. And so whether he's going to be a starter or a depth piece, you're looking at the Huskies offensive line and saying, hey, the competition is going in the right direction. The last guy I want to talk about here, Logan Sagapolu, a guy that started his career at Oregon, went to Miami. Now he's coming back to the West Coast with the Washington Huskies. Another guy similar to Enokk Vimahi who has never played consistently at Oregon or Miami, but's going into a 6th year in college football. You know, the physical maturation of a guy like Logan is certainly going to be there. And so you start looking at this Washington Huskies program, and we kind of said it. We think that the offensive skill is going to be good enough. We know Jedd Fisch can run a damn good offense. I think the only question that we have, especially again going into the Big Ten, is this offensive line going to be good enough heading into 2024? And it's really nice to see Jedd Fisch bringing in a ton of offensive linemen. The competition is going to be really high at fall camp. You're going to have 8, 9, 10 guys that you might feel good about. You let them compete for those spots. You put the best 5 out. That's how good offensive line rooms are built. You got to have good starting 5. You got to have that depth. And I think the Washington Huskies are slowly building that depth. And you look at Jedd Fisch taking over, losing his starting tackles to the NFL draft. His whole starting interior offensive lineman transfers out. I mean, he was starting from scratch, but I think he's done a phenomenal job building back this offensive line. You know the offensive line is going to be all right for Jedd Fisch in the future, but you look at 2024 and said it was kind of all hands on deck in terms of attacking the portal. I think Jedd Fisch has done exactly that. And again, Enokk Vimahi not going to make national news. This is a really, really good pickup for the Huskies. Fired up about this one. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.